Hey everybody out there, it's Pastor John with your Midweek Reflection. We're heading into the first week of Advent, and so I figured at the beginning of a new church year, might as well get off on the right foot and get back into this. I also wanted to introduce you to our Advent series, which is called, What Are We Waiting For? What are we waiting for? Advent is a season where we really focus on this reality that we are waiting for something. And, in a sense, a lot of times people think of Advent as like we're waiting for Jesus to be born because Christmas is coming. But even though Jesus has already come for us, there is still this waiting for all of the promises God has made through Jesus to be fulfilled and made visible to us. And so we live in this waiting reality, which is hard because, and a lot of people don't observe Advent because we don't like waiting. We don't enjoy it. It kind of stinks sometimes, especially when it's something we're looking forward to or when we're really suffering. We want something to be over with. We don't like waiting. But that's the reality we're in, and so we're going to be digging into it throughout the next few weeks. And, one of the cultural things, there are lots of cultural things that we do to avoid waiting. But there are also some problematic things in our culture that make us feel like we shouldn't have to wait. Think about watching your favorite television show, for instance. Think about how long is that show? Maybe an hour, maybe a half hour. And think about all the problems that get solved in a half hour or an hour. We see, and we would be bored if we didn't have that. If we watched these characters go through every moment of their lives, we'd be bored with it. So TV shows have learned, just give us the highlights, give us the really exciting stuff, as for the television show, and we'll engage, we'll watch the show because we don't have to wait for the problem too long anyway for the problem to be solved. And the worst is if you're like streaming a show on Netflix and the season ends with a cliffhanger. Oh man, you have to wait for another 6 months or a year before you can figure out how that problem is going to be solved. But most of the time, these problems can be wrapped up in a half hour to an hour. And a lot of times we kind of take that perspective back to our lives. And we assume that whatever problems we're facing, we should be able to really fix those within about a half hour or an hour. There should be this one thing that we can do, have the right words or the right idea, and we'll be able to solve this problem and get past whatever it is we're struggling with. And that's why we need the season of Advent, because that's not reality. And it's not something God has promised to us, frankly. And so one of the stories we're going to be looking at this week as we begin this series, What Are We Waiting For?, is the story of Abraham and Sarah. And if you remember, back in Genesis 12 is when we kind of first catch a glimpse of Abraham and get to know him a little bit. And God calls Abraham and he says, I'm gonna bless you, and I'm gonna make a great nation of you. That you're gonna have this prolific family. And Abraham at this point is 75 years old. So he's already been waiting. I'm sure he and Sarah are tired of waiting at this point. They've been waiting their whole lives to have kids, and it hasn't happened. And so God makes this great promise to Abraham and Sarah. But here's the thing. It doesn't happen right away. They wait for 10 years, 11 years even. They wait for 11 years. And so finally they're like, all right, God promised us this kid. It's not happening. And so that's when Hagar comes in. And Sarah says, here, take my slave. Have a kid with her. And maybe this will get the ball rolling. We've been waiting long enough. And so that happens, and Ishmael is born. And God says, no. That's not how I meant it to happen. That wasn't the idea. God says, again, I'm going to give you a child on my own terms. And guess what? It doesn't happen. Abraham and Sarah have to wait another 14 years. At this point, Abraham is 100 years old and Sarah's 90. Okay, so at this point, Abraham and Sarah, from the time God made this promise, had to wait 25 years for the fulfillment of this promise, and really the heart of the promise that God had made to them. And I want us to just keep that in perspective, whatever we are struggling with this week, whatever you're just kind of wishing away and waiting for, and just saying, God, what are you doing here? When are you going to fix this? That the key for us is not necessarily that we need to have all our problems solved immediately. The key for us is to learn how to wait, to learn how to trust God, and not just necessarily to sit back. No, but to learn how to wait well, to wait faithfully, to wait in a spirit of love and holy expectation of God's promises fulfilled. So that's just something to think about this week. And the question you can contemplate is, what are you waiting for? What is it that you're waiting for God to do in your life, that you just want to happen? What are you waiting for? As always, I look forward to worshiping with you as we live the gospel life together. And until then, may God bless you.